All right, everybody, welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into something I think a lot of you are interested in, and that's emotional nourishment.
Yeah,
And you guys have sent us a ton of material for this.
that's right.
We've got articles, we've got some research, even some personal notes from some of you. And so we're going to try to unearth all the good stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig in.
Yeah, it seems like a topic that people are really resonating with these days.
It is for sure.
And for good reason. Yeah,
Absolutely.
So let's start with the basics.
Yeah,
When we say emotional nourishment, what exactly are we talking about?
right.
I mean, it feels kind of intangible.
Well, it can be a little bit intangible.
Yeah.
It's not like grabbing a snack when you're hungry or,
Right.
getting a glass of water when you're thirsty.
Right.
It's more about taking consistent and deliberate actions over time to really fuel our emotional well-being.
I see. So it's kind of like you're building something with sustainability in mind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, building something that lasts.
Yeah. And this is where it starts to get really interesting because in one of the articles that you shared,
Right.
the author described it as like cultivating a thriving inner ecosystem.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think they meant by that?
I love that analogy of an inner ecosystem because
Right.
just like in nature, our emotions,
Yeah.
they require a balance. You need the right elements in place in order to thrive.
Right. So we're talking about really creating the right conditions for our emotions to kind of flourish.
Yeah, exactly.
But what happens when we neglect that,
Right.
that inner garden, so to speak?
Right.
What are the real world consequences of that?
Yeah, and I think that's something that's really important to highlight because it's not just about, feeling good or bad.
Right.
This can have real impact on our lives. In
Yeah.
fact, one of the studies that you sent, it highlighted how chronic emotional depletion can actually impact our physical health. Things like sleep disruption, lowered immunity,
Yeah.
even increased risk of cardiovascular issues.
It's amazing how connected
Yeah.
our mind and body really are.
For sure. It's a powerful reminder that we can't just compartmentalize these things.
Absolutely. And that makes you realize this isn't just about feeling good,
Right.
It's about our overall well-being.
Exactly. Yeah, taking a holistic view.
So how do we know if we're emotionally depleted? Like, what are some of the signs?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And then I think it can manifest in different ways for different people.
Right.
But some common signs could be feeling constantly drained and overwhelmed, having difficulty focusing, maybe being more irritable or short-tempered than usual,
Right.
withdrawing from social interaction.
Yeah.
Those are just a few things to look out for.
And actually, in your notes, you mentioned feeling consistently drained and overwhelmed lately.
Yeah, I did. And I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to,
Yeah.
especially in today's fast-paced world.
And that leads to the big question of, okay, so we recognize the need for emotional nourishment.
Right.
How do we actually cultivate it?
Right.
How do we put this into practice?
Yeah, because recognizing it is one thing,
Yeah.
but taking action is another.
Right.
And luckily, your sources offered some really fantastic insights here.
Okay.
So one recurring theme is the importance of mindfulness practices.
Okay, now I've heard about this,
Yeah.
but to be honest, I've always been a bit skeptical.
Oh,
Does it really have that much of an impact?
well, I used to be a little skeptical too,
I see.
but the research is actually quite compelling.
Okay.
So there's this one study, and it's cited in one of the articles you sent, that shows that regular mindfulness practice can actually rewire the brain
Wow.
to respond more calmly to stress.
So it's not just about feeling relaxed in the moment.
Right.
It's about creating lasting change.
Exactly. Yeah, it's about building that resilience over time.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So what does that look like in practice?
Well, it can take many forms.
Yeah.
Things like meditation,
Right.
deep breathing exercises, even just taking a few moments to really be present in your surroundings.
What?
Those can all be mindfulness practices.
I see.
And you don't need to spend hours on this.
Wow.
Even just a few minutes each day can make a difference.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so what else did you find in the research?
Another strategy that came up a lot is the power of gratitude.
Oh, right. Like keeping a gratitude journal.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. But does that really move the needle?
It can.
Okay.
You see, focusing on what we're grateful for, it shifts our attention away from negative thought patterns.
Right.
And that can have a ripple effect on our overall emotional state.
I see.
You know, it helps us to focus on the positive,
Right.
to appreciate the good things in our lives.
Okay, yeah, so it's about shifting our perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And gratitude doesn't have to be this big grand thing.
Right.
It can be as simple as noticing the warmth of the sun on your skin.
Yeah.
Or appreciating a delicious meal.
Yeah.
Or simply acknowledging the people in your life that you care about.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all of this fits together.
Yeah.
Like, it's about making small but consistent choices that nourish our emotional well-being.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is that these practices can be tailored to fit your individual needs and preferences.
Right. So there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly. You have to find what works for you.
So what resonates with you from what we've talked about?
For me personally, I found that incorporating mindfulness practices into my daily routine has made a big difference.
Yeah.
Even just taking 5 minutes in the morning to meditate,
Yeah.
it helps me to start the day with a sense of calm and focus.
Yeah, the mindfulness piece definitely caught my attention.
Yeah.
You know, I'm willing to give it a try,
That's great.
especially knowing that it can have such a profound impact.
Yeah. And remember, even small steps can make a big difference.
Right.
Start with just a few minutes each day
Okay.
and see how it feels.
Great advice. Great advice. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From defining emotional nourishment
Yeah,
to exploring practical ways to cultivate it.
absolutely.
So as we kind of wrap things up,
Mm-hmm.
what's one final thought that you would leave our listeners with?
You know, as you continue to explore this topic, I'd encourage you to ask yourself,
Yeah.
what unique practices or activities bring you a sense of emotional fulfillment?
So it's all about finding what works for each of us.
Exactly. And remember, tending to your emotional well-being is an ongoing journey. It's not a destination.
Yeah, it's a process.
Yeah.
Well said. Well said. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
My pleasure.
And until next time, keep those emotional... All right.